Good morning everybody, welcome back to another video. Some of you may be familiar with this road. This is the Lottery. Well, at least this side is, but this will take me to the top of the Col du Galibier, the monster that sits at 2,500 meters above sea level. I'm currently at about 2,000 meters above sea level, which is actually 100 meters higher than where we've been staying over the last week while out during the Alps. So I've driven here just to see what I can do at actual altitude. Well, I mean, we've been at actual altitude, but I mean a little bit more. So I've come here to test myself a little bit and also to take in the climb from this side to the Galibier that we will come down in the Marmot this weekend. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just going to be a ride using the GoPro and hopefully some nice mountain scenery.
Hello one and all, welcome back to another video. I know I've already done the intro, but we're back. So I'm sat at home now, we're back from the Alps, and wow, it's a bit of a come down, I must say. Like when you've been when you've been away in somewhere where you know you can climb big mountains, you can go down nice descents, you've got like lovely like company and food and views and everything. Yeah, I've got some holiday blues right now, but I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. And it's helping by watching my own GoPro footage. So without further ado, let's talk about what I'm trying to get across in this video, and if I run out of things to say, I'll just stop and we'll just keep rolling with the footage, because it's worth seeing this whole climb on GoPro footage. So first of all, thank you so much for your feedback on the recent series. The Haute Route series has gone down way better than I expected. Well, for a start, I didn't expect to perform as well as I did. So thank you all for keeping the faith and backing me and being patient, because I surprised myself, and I think we learnt a ton by just entering it and doing it anyway off the back of recent health issues. Obviously took things very cautiously, but still came second overall. So that's massively well, in terms of confidence, it's like you can still do these things as long as you take care and as long as you listen to how you feel on a day-to-day basis. We can still do well or better than expected most of the time. Like, our bodies are pretty incredible. So yeah, thank you for the feedback on that, and hopefully this paves the way for me to do more of this sort of stuff, because well, quite frankly, like it's what I'm breathing at the minute. And what I want to talk about in this video, I want to talk about like the climb. I want to obviously show you this footage, show you how incredible it is, and I want to talk in detail, very geek detail, about my power and how I felt during this effort and the altitude. We just passed some Pinot signs on the road there. Allez Thibaut, allez Thibaut. Tour de France is on currently, actually. Thought I'd mention that for the algorithm. So here we have the Col du Lottery, as I introduced at the start of this video. Let's talk a little bit about this mountain, and I feel like I can call it a mountain because long-time followers on this channel know, obviously, I'm from Wales, and although we produce some very good cyclists, we don't technically have what you would call mountains here. I mean, we do have hills and climbs, but like these are mountains. Like, I'm looking at that footage right there in front of me, and those are flipping mountains. So the Col du Lottery, it's 8.6 kilometers at 6.5%, so it's a smidge over 5 miles at 6.5%. When I first looked at this climb, especially data-wise, I thought to myself, it's not steep, it's fairly gradual, so it should produce a pretty high average speed, at least for me. That wasn't the case. I'll get onto that in a bit. So where I was in the car park at the start of this footage, and bearing in mind this section of the climb is probably the most even in terms of gradient. There's a bit of a steep bit at the end, which you'll see later, but this section is the shallowest, shall we say. So I was actually in the big ring for this section. The first few kilometers, almost the first 3 or 4 kilometers, I was in the big ring, which kind of lulled me into a false sense of security, if I may be truthful with you. So at that car park, we started at 2074, I think was the elevation, 2,074 meters. And the top, the summit, is 2,636 meters. So you're pretty much climbing about 500 meters over the space of the 8+ kilometers. Here's one of the first camera people I saw out on the mountain. By the way, it's worth telling you exactly what's happening there. So if you've never been to this part of the world, and bearing in mind this is my first time, technically, yeah, people basically, they camp out on the mountain the whole day, and they take professional high-level photos. They upload them, and then you can pick them up online, and you can obviously share them on Strava, or you can share them wherever you like, or you can just keep them, because to be fair, some of them, the background, like the whole shot is just it's worthy of being framed and put on a wall, quite frankly. So yeah, this part of the climb is fairly, air quotes, flat. Like it feels fast. And when I talked about earlier about the speed and how I thought this climb was faster than what it actually turned out to be, I wonder if any of you out there whether you live in the mountains, or whether you've raced in the mountains, or you've done efforts like this in the mountains, whether you've noticed, like I have, but you don't move as fast. And I don't know whether it's like the tarmac, I don't know whether it's like the air density. Like I'm no scientist, but like I thought with a 6.5% gradient, I'd be moving at this sort of power output a little bit quicker than I was. I think I was doing around the 19 to 20 kilometer an hour mark, and I know it sounds fast for many of us. I'm not oblivious to that, but I was curious to see how, or why rather, my speed was so low, when if I was to do a similar power effort, say in a climb in the UK at sea level, I would be moving faster. So yeah, it was a strange one. Maybe I thought it was the altitude, like my power was very similar, but yeah, we'll come on to that later. Power, let's just take in the climb for a second. So location wise, this climb is around about 50 kilometers, or about 30 miles east of Alpe d'Huez. So my recommendation, if you're gonna ride this climb, is, I mean, you could ride to it, but it's a main road to get to it. And those of you that have done it, you can let us know in the comments down below. If you've ever ridden to the Laverack from whichever side, because you can come at it from two directions really. If you come at it from the Alpe d'Huez direction, it's a long old slog. It's pretty much 50 kilometers uphill. Like you're going from about 700 meters above sea level down in Beic to well, the car park where I started, which is like 2,000 meters. So it's pretty much, yeah, uphill the whole way. This is obviously what you're seeing in the footage now. This is the reverse of what we do at the Marmot. So we'll be coming down this in the Marmot, and then past the car park I parked in, and then all the way downhill on this main road. It's really nice actually. Through lots of tunnels. You probably go through about 5-6 tunnels. None of them are like considerably long. I mean, you're kind of through them. I think the longest one is probably a minute long. You're through them pretty quickly. I hope you're looking forward to that video, by the way. It's going to be taking me a while to edit. It probably won't be ready till the weekend, but please stay tuned for that one. Subscribe if you're new and all that stuff. So if you're gonna ride, I would give it, a whole day almost. It's a long ride to get there. However, you will be rewarded if you go back the same way with a very, very nice fast descent. I'm talking sort of, the 50 kilometers back to Beic. You could probably average like 40 kilometers an hour, and sometimes that's like not even pedaling, I gotta be honest with you. But yeah, on this climb though, once you get to that car park, you turn. There's a small village at the bottom. Well, it's probably a pretty large village actually, but there's a little hamlet at the bottom, and then you take this left turn that says Col du Galibier, direction Galibier, because obviously the summit is the Galibier summit, with all the signposts and everything else. And to be honest, it was this climb is really busy with motorcyclists, which probably comes as no surprise. It's the same as the UK actually, but yeah, there was lots of people up there. You can even find information about the people who are taking the professional photos as well at the summit. You usually can actually on most of these big climbs, but yeah, it's this climb is stunning. What I liked about it the most, well, what I love about my favorite bit of the climbs that I love is always the fact that they're busy. And I don't mean by cars or traffic or other cyclists. I mean busy as in there's something always happening. So, you know, the road is never super straight here for any long period of time. Like, you can never really see, you know, where you're going almost. It's not a case of like you look up there to your right and you're like, oh, that's where I'm going. Like, it almost kind of leaves you guessing a little bit. You know, in the UK, we don't have climbs or mountains really where, you know, you can see the summit, because they're either you know, covered by hedges, you know, tight roads, or it's so wide open and exposed that you know, there's never really any straight roads in the UK. How I find this climb to compare to the Galibier on the other side is that this climb has more things happening. It's almost like this climb, you know, there's more grass, there's more greenery, there's more animals, there was, quite frankly, more people on this side, so there was more cyclists to pass. So whether or not this side is more accessible to people, maybe, in terms of not just like to get there location wise, but the ability. So if you are, you know, not a super strong cyclist, or if you have had a long period of time off the bike and you're just trying to break yourself in, or maybe this is one of your first rides in the area and you haven't been to this area and you want to break yourself into elevation and everything else, then maybe this is the side you do. Because it was my thinking actually that I would do this side before I would try and do anything you know, remotely like the Galibier, because the Galibier was longer, there was less to sort of take in. You know, it was very sort of, it's very lunar. It's like the moon landscape. It's not quite Mont Ventoux, because I've never been there. Charlie has, obviously, but it's very sort of it's not as busy as this climb. Like, when I'm coming up this little shelf road here, I can see down on the right, and it's awesome, it's lovely, and it's actually something to take in while you're sort of really deep into an effort like I was here. So let's get into the nitty gritty then, because we're coming to the end of this footage now. Now, I went there to test myself. I wanted to see, like, what is the difference at elevation. This is actually my first time ever doing a flat out effort of around this 20-25 minute mark at elevation. I've never done it before. I've raced at elevation, I've raced at mountains, never done an effort that is like, you know, an all-out time trial or an all-out fresh effort. So I thought it'd be really interesting to see like for like, you know, because a lot of the times we see riders who, you know, do races and then they finish on top of a mountain, so they're not quite fresh, or we see you know, you race over the top of a mountain but it doesn't finish there, and you descend and then it finishes somewhere else. So I wanted to see what I could do, like a, you know, an all-out time trial effort up at altitude, and to see what all the fuss was about. No, I'm joking. Like, I know there's a price to pay at altitude. I know that. I was just curious to find out like what it was. So I was fairly fresh coming into this. Those that have been following me recently will know that I've not been in my best shape. Like, I'm probably not close to it. And those of you who have been in good shape recently, or have been to that point in time where you're like, oh my word, I'm absolutely flying, and then you've had some time off and you're like, wow, I've lost form quick. Like, you can bluff fitness to a point, but then when something is added into the mix, you're like, wow, I really can't do it now. So this was that extra added thing that really sort of showed me just how awesome, let's just say the Tour de France level cyclists are, like their ability to perform at altitude. So this was me giving it that go, and I'm not afraid to admit that I didn't blow, but I suffered. I would say the last 2K, the last 3K, I was like, something has happened. Like, what has happened here? Then, of course, I realized I was at 2,400 meters above sea level. So, I was good at the bottom, big ring, feeling strong, holding like 360 watts. I was like, I can hold this to the top. Like, those of you that know, I'm sure you do already, the Sacre KOM attempt, I obviously came here to try and have a go at Alpe d'Huez, which didn't work out because of, obviously my fitness and my health recently. But I still set the 6th fastest time on the Strava KOM, which frankly blew my mind. But I was obviously on a good day. But today, I came into it fresh. I came into it like motivated to see what I could do. And by the halfway point, I thought to myself, well, 350, 360 watts is potentially on here. I'm holding form. I've not got out the saddle once, and actually I never got out the saddle at all on this climb, because, well, you just wouldn't really. I mean, if you're pacing it and you're moving at quite a good speed, you kind of don't want to break that rhythm, and by getting out the saddle, sometimes you do break that rhythm. The only time I would generally get the saddle is to get over a really steep bit, or to respond to an attack or something. So when you're doing a time trial effort, so to speak, there's not really any need to do it. So I was fairly confident by the halfway mark. Now, I'm not sure where we are here in terms of K to go. I am assuming we're about 3 kilometers to go here, because we've got about 5 to 7 minutes left. So a couple of K to go. We've got the hairpins left, and I could see on my Wahoo head unit that it was going to get steep. So I didn't actually have anything left to give. Like, I wasn't going to be able to like increase my power on the steep bits, which is what I normally do. So that frightened me a little bit. I was like, that's a bit unusual. Like, sometimes I've got something back, and even though I set off at a power that I thought I could sustain to the top, I was now starting to succumb to this effect of altitude, and I was starting to question, am I even going to be able to hold the power that I've got to the top? Spoiler alert again, no. So my power just kept dropping effectively in the last sort of 2 kilometers. It didn't help that, although I love it, the climb does change gradient quite a bit. I love that, but it doesn't help when you're trying to hold a certain wattage when you're absolutely gasping. And I tell you what, I was gasping for air. I got to the top, and I'm going to say it now because when I get to the top, the footage is going to cut out. But when I got to the top, it took me about 5 to 7 minutes to fully regain my sort of resting heart rate, or anywhere near that. Like, my heart rate was at like 175 when I finished, and it took a good few minutes to get down to anywhere near that 110 mark. And that was me stopped. Like, I was on the side of the road, sat there, just trying to get some oxygen in. So it took ages, like a lot longer than what it would normally take. Like, usually, in 2 minutes, that heart rate is down, and I'm like, away to go, let's get going. But I actually didn't feel safe to turn around and to descend, which is what I did want to do. I wanted to get to the top, take a quick photo or whatever, and then turn around and start coming back down. But I didn't even have the energy to get my hand into my back pocket, to take my phone out, to take a photo. I had to wait to get my breath back. So this was all new to me. I was like, this is just incredible. Like, this is the first time, well, at least in a long time, that I've had this sensation of like just not not being in control, so to speak. You are a little bit out of control. You feel out of control. So if you've never been to altitude, and you don't have to come into the Alps. I know that there's hundreds of places all over the world you can go to altitude and ride your bike, but go to altitude and experience it, and see what it feels like and what you can do. You don't have to do a max effort like I've done, but just see how your body responds. And I can't say for sure yet if anything has happened. You know, I was at 1800 meters of altitude for 10 days. I'd only been there for 5 or 6 days when I did this effort, so maybe not long enough to see any sort of changes, but it was definitely something that you should potentially, you know, try and see how you react to. So with about 2 or 3k to go, I went pop. I didn't go pop completely, but I was certainly like gasping, and I needed to get to the top. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but you know the feeling where you're like, okay, where's the top now? Like, the top needs to come soon. It never helps, you know, when you have these little stones on the side of the road that tell you how far you have to go, and you're like, no, 1k to go. That's like at least another 5 minutes. So I was caving in. So to give you some data, to put it into perspective, it's really, really, really interesting. And I had a massive surprise when I saw this. But obviously, take it with a pinch of salt, because I haven't been able to train properly basically ever since I took the KOM on Cyclist. That was a 25-minute effort, you know, give or take a couple of seconds. And I managed to do 6.3 watts per kilo on Cyclist. And that was, I think, 378 watts. Now, Cyclist is, as many of you know, 0 meters. It starts at virtually sea level, and it ends at about 700 meters. So that 6.3 watts per kilo got me to the top in 25 minutes. This climb, the Col du Galibier, was also, give or take, 24.5 minutes, so a couple of seconds in it. This climb also paced as hard as I could go. I was definitely fried at the top, and I did 338 watts for 24.5 minutes, 5.6 watts per kilo. Now, that's bearing in mind I'll be roughly the same weight. It's not bang on, but it's not, you know, this isn't real science, but it's close enough. It's close enough to tell you that altitude takes it out of you. So I basically went up this climb as hard as I could at 2,000 or 2,500 meters above sea level, and this is the takeaway. I went from 5.6 watts per kilo on this climb to a couple of months ago. Yes, I was in a bit better shape. Yes, I was probably like in shape of my life, frankly. 6.3 watts per kilo. So 5.6 versus 6.3, and 338 watts versus 378 watts. I mean, that's considerable. You know, that's 40 watts. So whenever you hear any other, you know, famous cycling YouTubers blame anything like Zwift racing and stuff on altitude, then, you know, they're speaking the truth. So that's gonna wrap up this video. As I'm struggling to catch this guy, and he was shouting, he was telling me, come on, you can do it, and I was like, barely coming past you. This was the moment where I was like, yeah, okay, this was not such a good idea now. But actually, I was very glad that I drove there, because it makes a big difference. It doesn't break you mentally before you even get there. I'm joking, but this is by far the favorite part of the climb for me. I love the switchbacks, love the hairpins. Something to look at on my right shoulder right here. You can't see it as much as I could, but like, it was incredible. More photographers, and then the road changes again, so it's like right left, and then it straightens up. There's another Pinot sign, just rubbing the salt in the wounds there on the road, because I knew I wasn't taking this KOM. But I was loving it. I was enjoying it. I had a whale of a time testing myself at altitude, and I'm not ashamed to say that obviously I need to simulate altitude. I need to find a way to simulate altitude if I'm gonna be like somewhat competitive at these sort of events. Well, you'll see from the Marmot video very soon. You know, if I want to be able to achieve like what I believe I can achieve, then we need to find a way to do the altitude thing. We need to find a way to deal with the heat. You'll also see that in the Marmot video. But lots to come. I want to thank you for watching this video all the way through and listening to me talk for 25 minutes. I really, really appreciate it. honestly, I really do. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for staying patient. We got lots more videos coming up over the coming days, with the Marmot video finally sealing and bringing this whole thing to a close. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Give it a like, comment, subscribe, share it with some friends who want to go out there and ride, and I'll see you soon.